Hello and welcome to an episode of Risk Talks. Today I'm joined by Iain Wright, the chair of the Institute of Risk Management, who joins us to talk about the Institute of Risk Management. He's the Chief Risk Officer of Canada Life Europe and the ex-Chief Risk Officer of Quilter, Sun Life UK and Prudential UK. Hello Iain, welcome to Risk Talks.
Thank you, good to be here.
It's my pleasure. So I guess if we go straight into it, can you give me an introduction to the work that the Institute of Risk Management does?
Yeah, sure. So the IRM is, we believe, the leading professional body for enterprise risk management, and we're an independent and not-for-profit members organisation. If I think about what our mission is to build excellence in risk management to improve the way organisations work, and our members work in all sectors and across many, many countries across the world. We're probably best known for our globally recognised qualifications and training, but we also publish, and an important part of what we do is publishing research and thought leadership. And we also set professional standards which define the knowledge, skills and behaviours that today's risk professionals need. We recently merged with the Institute of Operational Risk, and that moves the work of the IRM into the very closely related field of operational risk. And the activities of the Institute of Operational Risk largely reflect those of the IRM, so qualifications, training, research and thought leadership. If I maybe spend a couple of minutes on each of those qualifications, we believe that our qualifications give risk professionals the broad range of knowledge and practical skills that they need. And our training courses supplement that. So the training courses focus on particular topics. They tend to be more specialised, generally range from 1 to 2 days, or you can take a 5-day masterclass of our most popular courses. And the courses are highly engaging, interactive, practical case studies, and I'll come back to that practical point in a minute, and also allow participants to gain CPD hours. In terms of thought leadership and research, we publish some of that directly, often using the input of our members, or with partners such as the University of Cambridge or Hubei University in China. And recent examples include things like cyber risk, risk culture, risk management in various sectors such as consumer and oil and gas. And we're also an important contributor to the World Economic Forum Global Risks Report. And then finally, at the heart of our member engagement are our interest groups. And this is a great way for non-members to get involved in the activities of the Institute. They operate either regionally, so that might be a country, or in a place where we've got a lot of members, it might be more localised, so it might be the northwest of England, or by special interests such as climate change, infrastructure, charities and innovation. And that, as I say, is a really good way for people to get involved in the activities. It's the way I got involved actually in the Institute of Risk Management, go along to some meetings, meet some peers, talk about a subject that's close to your heart, or meet people in the same geography as you. And then the interest and the rewards from the Institute grow from there.
Great. It sounds like there's quite a few sort of different things. I guess a lot of it is add value. So as a risk recruiter, I'm clear about the benefits of what risk qualifications are, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. What do you think the benefits are, and why should someone be looking at taking an Institute of Risk Management exam and qualification?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And maybe I can answer that by stepping back a bit and talking a bit personally about why I joined the board of the Institute. My background is I qualified as a chartered accountant many years ago. I've worked as a regulator, and I've worked, as you said earlier in the introduction, as a chief risk officer, mostly in insurance wealth management. Throughout my career, when I see colleagues recruiting into finance or legal functions or in insurance in actuarial functions, a stipulation of that is that you need to be a qualified accountant or training to be an accountant, or a qualified or trainee or actuary, or a trainee or qualified lawyer. When you come into risk, we don't tend to have exactly the same requirements. And so I'm really passionate about how we can build and how we can professionalize the risk function, risk people, to get it in time, and I know this will take a long time, but to get it in time to the same stature and standard as those other functions. And I think what we're seeing in organizations now with CROs at the same level as the CFOs or the chief legal officer, and in many cases having the chief actuary reporting to them, you're seeing that the stature of the CROs have now been built to the standard where actually I think we can really drive forward the professionalisation. And I believe that For individuals, taking qualifications is going to make them particularly attractive to employers who are serious about developing highly skilled teams and improving their risk decision making. I think, unfortunately, COVID has clearly led to a number of negative consequences, but I think one of the positive consequences is there is an increased focus in many organisations now on the quality of risk management, and they are really questioning what the role of risk management, not just within risk professionals, but broader, is, and how they can really skill up the people in their organisations to allow them to become more predictive, more proactive, as well as reactive to events when they happen. Within the Institute, we're also engaging with senior risk professionals like CROs and non-executives in order to try and educate them about the quality of our qualifications and the need to have highly qualified professionals. And as I said earlier, our risk management qualifications do give candidates a broad knowledge, and crucially, we don't just give them theoretical knowledge. Everything that we do is around practical knowledge and how the theory can be applied in organisations. And so when we talk about, assessing risk, there's a very, very practical way of quantifying, identifying, quantifying, assessing and managing risk. And that's at the heart of everything we do. And I think one of the other positive things, if I can bring out of COVID, is the increase in move of organisations such as ours to more digital offering. It's something we'd planned to do over a number of years, and we've had to do in a short number of months. And what that means is that anybody across the world can engage with our qualifications and our training and get that quality. And we find in certain areas of the world that we're seeing a huge degree of interest in our qualifications for exactly the reasons that I've said. So I think in brief, to answer your question, I think we're hoping, and I think personally, I really believe that organisations are going to be reaching out for more highly skilled, professionally qualified risk individuals. But I think for individuals, it's also a really good way to get development. So if you are working in a risk function, you're interested in risk, get the grounding through our qualifications or our training, and that will really serve you in your own personal development.
I think, you touched on a few really interesting points there. Risk as a discipline, certainly the 15 years that I've been involved in recruiting within risk, I've seen it expands both in terms of visibility, and I think naturally risk, the times that people really focus on it across other areas of the business is when we've got times of economic troubles, and COVID is one example, global financial crisis would have been another. But yeah, it's great that risk, CROs are being put on, similar sort of footing to other senior C-suite positions. Mm-hmm. And it's great to see the discipline evolving. And also you talked about the digitalization of training. I think that's really important. I think just being able to offer it more internationally and make people readily available to take it if they're not based near a centre where you can, historically, where you might have had to actually sit an exam. Yeah, I think that's good. So I guess if we look at talking about exams, if someone was to choose to take one of your exams or certifications, what do you think they should have in their mind in terms of when considering which one to take? Because I know there's a number of different qualifications you've got.
Yeah, no, that's right, and there are, and I think the flagship qualification, if I can call it that, is our international certificate, and that is our by far and away the most popular qualification, and the one that gives the recognition that you have an Institute of Risk Management qualifications. That's our international certificate. We also have a specialist international certificate on financial services risk management, which focuses more on some of the financial services disciplines, but it's essentially the same. That's sort of a 5 to 9 month course. It's roughly equivalent to an undergraduate degree. It's about 180 to 200 hours per module, and it's 2 modules. So there's flexibility about how quickly you can take it. So that's a big time commitment. And I think one of the first things that people need to consider is what time do they have available? So what time are they willing to invest in getting that qualification? And the second thing, which I think people need to clearly think about, is, well, what is it they're trying to achieve? So don't just sort of reach out for a qualification or a training course. I would say put it in the context of what you personally are wanting to do. So it may be somebody that really sees opportunities to progress in their organisation, maybe somebody that sees an organisation that is starting to do the things we were just talking about, to start thinking about the quality of their risk professionals and wants to get a bit ahead of the game. Or frankly, it might be somebody that's looking for a move and wants to actually get something on their CV that will help with that next challenge. So I think all of those things are important, and sort of to meet that, we have a number of qualifications and training courses. So I talked about the international certificate. The next stage beyond that is what we call a diploma, which is broadly equivalent to a master's degree. That's a lot more intensive and takes you on to the next level. And we have a number of people that have taken the certificate go on to that. But then going the other way, we then also recognise that rather than have those very extensive qualifications, some people may just want a more focused qualification. So I mentioned earlier the merger with the Institute of Operational Risk. We've revamped their certificate in operational risk management, put it as part of our Institute of Risk Management suite, and that's a very focused certificate in operational risk management. It's quite broad across operational risk, but it focuses on operational risk. And then in the last year or so, we've also launched specialist qualification, specialist certificates, and I think this is probably something we'll do more of. So one, and in areas that we believe are very topical, so one is in digital risk management, so looking at cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, how those things are developing and what risk managers need to be aware of in the context of those developments. And then the second one is supply chain risk management, which again is very focused and very topical, and actually it's one of those great coincidences that we developed that just as COVID broke. And I think one of the early things that everybody saw through COVID was reliance on supply chains and how fragile they can be and how they can very, very easily disrupt your own operations if you don't have the proper controls and understanding of those. So there's a range of ways, and I think going back to what people need to think about is really how much time have I got? And how does this fit in with what I want to do? If I can just mention a couple of other things that we do, which are sort of tangential but important. We also offer modern apprenticeships, so we've managed to sign up for those in the last year, and that means that anybody over the age of 16, their employer gets funding for them as an apprentice, and they can take the international certificate or other qualifications as part of their apprenticeship. And I think that's a really good way of getting youngsters. It's not just young people, but they tend to be younger people, and it's a great way of getting younger people into risk management. And we've also signed up, we've also got funding from the Enhanced Learning Credits Administration Service, LCAS, which means that ex-service personnel can get funding to do the certificate in operational risk. And that's part of our ongoing commitment to helping service personnel make the transition from the services into other roles. And I think that's an important point. So those may be relevant for certain of your listeners, and it all goes into the what is it that people really want to get out of their training. And then we talked earlier, there are a number of training courses, so a good way to just sort of dip your toe in, if you like, might be to look at one of our training courses. There's something, the Fundamentals of Risk Management is a 2-day course. We offer it online. Gives you quite a good grounding, a good starting point in risk management. So, and hopefully that whets the appetite of people and they think, yeah, I'd like to take this further and get a proper qualification in this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think there's, it's great to hear there's different courses or different certificates you can do in terms of whether it's bite size or all the way to a sort of master's equivalent. And I think I guess you touched on service personnel. I've seen some really fantastic people who have come from services, military services, do really well within risk. Particularly, I've seen it within a broader sort of operational enterprise risk perspective. But yeah, it's great, and I think I'm a big advocate of continuous learning and continuous training. I think it's really important, and it's nice to see there are different offerings for all.
Yeah, no, that point about service personnel is really important. I mean, they get trained and they intuitively think about risk in everything they do, because we talk about risk and it's financial loss or a bit of management time to sort out an issue. They're thinking about risk in terms of loss of life, and really that does really bring it home. So I think what the aim is to do is to give them a qualification that helps them take those skills they've already got into a business environment. So yeah, really happy that we're supporting that. Maybe I could ask you a question actually while I'm here, which is, we talked about the importance of qualifications, but as you're talking to companies and you're placing candidates, do you find that they talk about what qualifications and are they looking for skilled risk professionals, or are they tend to looking for people that are skilled by experience rather than qualification?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd say there's definitely an increased number of people who are asking for and saying it's preferable to have a risk qualification. Being really frank, I don't think anyone says you need to have a qualification, but it's really looked upon favourably. And because also there's, as you touched on earlier, there's a number of different qualifications that you can look at taking. It really depends on the role that people are going for and the relevance of the qualification. So if we talk about, from a point that we touched on before, 15 years ago, it was more common for people, even such as yourself, Iain, to have started their careers in a different discipline and moved into risk. So now we're seeing large numbers of people start their careers in risk, even some people taking risk-specific degrees, and the discipline of risk is definitely becoming more professional. It's more, it's more clear in terms of the routes that people can take and the options that going more senior within the companies that you're at. There's open to a lot more options. It's still not quite like the accounting or legal professions where you have to have one specific industry qualification, but actually risk as a discipline, we both know it's actually quite broad. And the more that you look into risk, the more you realise, whether it's supply chain or digital or operational credit and market and so on and so forth. There's so many different aspects to it. But my belief is that managers like people who can show further development and training, understand best practices and understand what they should be doing, and also being able to implement it in their working life. So yeah, I think we're seeing sort of more people doing it, and there's definitely more of a desire to do it. And certainly I'd recommend people to look at risk training, and when they are, look at the content of the course in terms of what they're going to get from it, rather than just specifically the qualification. It's what you're going to learn out of it. And I think that's really important. And I guess I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on the back of that, Iain, and also if it's relevant, whether you're seeing sort of increased numbers taking risk training or anything along those sort of lines.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'd like us to do more of is understand why people do it. So we do some sort of surveying of members and why they've done it. But I think I'd like to do that to get to exactly to be able to answer that question, because the growth in the institute, and we have grown significantly over recent years. It's difficult to determine whether it's more people wanting to do it or whether it's just we've actually got a broader reach and we're better at actually reaching people and selling the quality of the qualifications. So it's a bit difficult, but I think personally, as I said to you, I'm really keen in professionalising it. My ambition, which will be way beyond my tenure as a chair, will be to get risk on the same footing as finance and actuaries and legal professions. And I think in order to do that, we need to give people very practical qualifications. And as I said before, we're not, although we give a lot of theory, it's always designed to be how can you add value in your organisation? Because I think if we're going to professionalise people, we need people in risk who are, who stand up within their organisations, that are seen as very, very strong people who add value to the organisation, not theoretical people building a model over here that really has no validity to what the organisation is doing. So I agree, and it's good to hear that people like the quality of a qualification. I think I'd like to see people start to demand qualifications more, and that's what we as an institute are going to work on over the next few years.
Great, thank you. I think that comes to towards the end of our time, Iain. But thank you. You've mentioned so many points. I'm really glad that the training's hands-on and it's really add value. So thank you again so much for your time, Iain.
Pleasure. It's good to meet you. Thank you.